Joining our webinar on the Certified Wellness Coach Initiative and the new scholarship opportunity. I'm Jim Keddy. I'm with Youth Forward. Youth Forward is a Sacramento-based nonprofit organization. We are dedicated to trying to build the field of youth development here in California. Some of you may be familiar with the work we've been doing over the last several years in developing new funding streams for youth organizations through partnering with the Department of Healthcare Services and other state agencies and directing state cannabis tax revenue to youth serving organizations around the state. And we're thrilled here to be joining the Healthcare Access and Innovation Agency, and they will be presenting. I'm also joined by my colleague, Sarah Michael Gaston, who fortunately is helping figure out all of any tech issues as we move along here. But why don't we go ahead and ask the team from HCI to introduce themselves. Lindsay, would you like to start?
Yes, absolutely. Hi, everyone. Thank you guys all for being here. We're so excited to share this information with you. My name is Lindsay Bradshaw, and I am a project manager at the California Department of Healthcare Access and Information, HCI, and I specifically support the wellness coach work. And I'll pass it to Anne.
Hi, I'm Ann Powell. I also work at HCI in the Office of Health Workforce Development, in the policy section and the behavioral health content person, and have worked for about a year on the wellness coach. And I'll turn it to my colleague, Ben.
Hi, everyone. Ben Gamache, also with HCI in the Office of Health Workforce Development, also in the policy section, and have had the pleasure of working on the development of this profession for about 2 years now. I'm really excited you could be here today to learn about it.
All right. So Ben and Ann are our presenters, and they'll be walking you through information about the Certified Wellness Coach Initiative, and then they'll get into the details of the scholarship. We are recording this webinar, and it will be posted on the Youth Forward YouTube page. We will send you all that link to the page following the webinar. Also on our YouTube channel, you can find other webinars we've created about the youth development funding opportunities through state cannabis tax revenue, Prop 64, Department of Healthcare Services, GoBiz, etc. But without further delay, we're going to get started on the presentation. The way we're going to work this is we're going to invite people. Okay, it looks like we may have a functional chat now. Can people see Sarah's chat? Okay, we have chat in operation. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to ask you to put your questions in the chat, and my job will be to monitor the chat and then be able to steer questions to Ben and to Ann towards the end of the webinar. So feel free to use the chat. And thank you again for joining us. I'm going to turn this over to Ben and Ann, and we're going to get started.
Thank you so much, Jim. And as I mentioned, I'm Ben Gamache, and we're here to present a few items today on our wellness coach profession. First, you can see that we'll do an overview of the wellness coach profession, just kind of ground us in why this was created in the first place. Then we'll go into more details about how you actually get certified as a certified wellness coach. And then last, we'll present our current scholarship, wellness coach scholarship program, and all the details, and share some exciting news about how this is live now. Excuse me. So it's always important to ground us in the mission of HCI, the Department of Healthcare Access and Information, and we're here to expand equitable access to quality, affordable healthcare for all Californians. So as part of that work, there was a master plan for kids' mental health that came about and created the Children and Youth Behavioral Health Initiative. And this was a historic investment by the state of California that is really taking a whole child approach, which is a rather innovative approach to thinking about health and wellness, and really is intended to address the factors that contribute to mental health and well-being for California's children and youth. And as part of that initiative, CYBHI, that you'll hear us call it, and you can see that nice little logo down in the corner, As part of that funding and plan, we were tasked to design and implement this new workforce called the Certified Wellness Coach. So the CYBHI is a really big, huge initiative that has 20 plus work streams that cross workforce training and capacity, behavioral health infrastructure, coverage benefits, public awareness. So we are just one small piece that you can see there's that yellow box, the wellness coach workforce, that's part of the workforce training capacity. But there's a lot of other things happening right now to support California's children and youth. And we will talk about this just very kind of high level in this next slide. But you'll see down here, there's a statewide multi-payer fee schedule for school and behavioral health services in that coverage column. We do have a little bit of intersection with our Department of Healthcare Services that, that oversees Medi-Cal. And so we'll talk a little bit about that in the next slide about funding. So the multi-year timeline, this project has many different sub-projects in it. And there's some great resources out there that we have linked at the end of this deck that will lead you to a lot of these items. We did launch a public-facing marketing website and a statewide marketing campaign to really bring more awareness to this brand new profession because it's never existed before. And you hear wellness coach elsewhere, that means different things. But when we say California Certified Wellness Coach, we really want you to understand what are the competencies associated with that, what is the training, and what are the scope of services that these individuals offer. So you can find all of that on our website, and we have lots of marketing materials out there should you want support or toolkits or anything to disseminate this information. We also launched an employer support grant to support our education community, really focusing on school-linked and school-based organizations to help them draw down funds and be able to hire on wellness coaches so that we can build out this workforce, both to retain individuals that are doing similar work, as well as expand to individuals that have not yet entered into the behavioral health workforce and are looking for a new route into a new profession. Our certification did go live. You can now get certified as a wellness coach as of February 2024. We have a link for that, and we'll actually go through all the certification details in our next slides. Another thing that we're going to go through in detail today that we really want to highlight and make sure that you're full aware of all these opportunities and disseminating this awesome opportunity we have right now is our scholarships. We are offering up to $35,000 for students to be able to go into and complete an associate or bachelor's degree in a qualifying major. So Anne will go through that in a lot more details, but really important to note that our scholarship cycle is currently open. And so we want everyone to be able to take advantage of that. We're also partnering with our community colleges and our California State universities and private nonprofit universities to build out a specific HCI designated curriculum for wellness coach training. So you can get certified now. That's kind of our phase one. And eventually we're going to have our phase two. That's going to be very specific programs that offer these trainings. So that's going to be rolling out beginning in fall of 2024 and continue on a rolling basis for many years to come. And the other item that I mentioned in that previous slide is that in early 2025, we are currently collaborating with Department of Healthcare Services to roll out Medi-Cal coverage. So the Certified Wellness Coach will be a reimbursable provider type, which is a really, really great opportunity. It's a sustainability mechanism so that employers can offset the cost of hiring on wellness coaches and have some of their services and some of their time be reimbursed, pending that they are supporting Medi-Cal students. But the really cool thing too is in this new multi-payer fee schedule, which we can provide links to. We are, not the experts, but that also commercial insurance will be able to cover these services in school-linked and school-based organizations. So a lot of really great kind of innovative approaches to this work. So great, now that you really understand where this came from, what is the wellness coach here to do? And we understand right now that children and youth have inadequate and inequitable access to the behavioral health care that they need. So as part of that, there we go, a little lag there. A little bit more is really where that need is coming from is that 1 in 4 adolescents suffer from depression and anxiety. And so we just know that this is a crisis and we really need a skilled behavioral health professional that can increase that capacity and increase that supply so that we can reach the children and youth that need us. So part of our effort and what HCI is here to do is to expand that workforce to better address the unmet needs of its diverse communities. And we'll talk about this a little bit later, but a big part of this role is a representative workforce that can support the diversity of California. And I'll talk about this in our next slides as well, but just to ground us in, this is a preclinical profession. So this is an entry-level behavioral health profession that is really supporting intervention, early intervention, and prevention. So the intention of this is that the wellness coaches will be able to improve the behavioral health and well-being of children and youth through age 25 by creating a type of provider that can support their social and emotional development and really be in a wide variety of settings, not just school settings, but that can be health clinics, wellness centers, government centers, community-based organizations, anywhere that we can reach children and youth and provide services, and as well make sure that they have access to other individuals should they need more care. So I want to play this video that really just kind of talks about the vision of Wellness Coach, kind of encapsulates everything that we just went through. So I'm going to play this video for you now.
Public schools, for me at least, felt extremely impersonal, and I wish I had been in a space before my anxiety got so bad that I could have talked to somebody and somebody could have realized what I actually needed.
There's a lack of resources, definitely. I don't think we really think that the school system is meant to help us.
I need to ask for help sometimes, but I wouldn't always ask for it because I feel like I would be judged.
Before COVID, there was a youth mental health and child mental health crisis. COVID shone a light on how bad the situation was for many children.
What I see personally in our schools is a wider gap than I have ever seen. We've got a teaching force that is also overburdened, burnt out.
It's really important to have someone to listen. I think that's one of the biggest things with kids is they want to feel like you're listening to them.
When your young person goes to school and there's teachers, but who else is there?
And what we're hearing from youth is that they don't necessarily all need therapy-based counseling. Some of them just need positive and enriching experiences.
The wellness coaches are part of a larger children and youth initiative around wellness and counteracting the stigma around mental health.
It's filling this gap that existed between counselors and psychologists and children and families.
A certified wellness coach is another one of those folks that can work in the schools, in the after-school programs, to create positive school climates, create supportive relationships, to help to screen students and understand what issues they're facing, and to help them and their families navigate to services when necessary.
And so meeting a youth, maybe before they even go through the classroom door, right? Meeting them and welcoming them and make coming to school something that is important and worthwhile.
It might be that kid who nobody says anything to them all day. And then here is one person who's checking in with you for that day, one person that you can go to.
They're someone to look up to or someone to seek advice from. Just one piece of information can really guide you, and it kind of becomes like a domino effect.
There's a lot they'll be able to do in providing individual support, group support, how to set goals, how to form friendships.
Work with them on social emotional skills, work with them on problem solving strategies.
Those are the types of things that we know by research help to support students' success in life.
Having that extra adult on campus, they're creating this culture of health and wellness.
I think it's much easier to relate in a more casual way to people who are closer to your age.
What youth have told us is they want a younger workforce that's reflective of them, who have that emotional intelligence, can make you feel seen and heard.
Who we're looking for, the people that are from the communities that the students live in, that look like the students.
Making sure that if they're not from those communities, that they have cultural competency. Compassion and empathy are key. Really having that capacity to view people as human beings.
If they see someone relatable, it opens that door. It's more comfortable. And they themselves know, like, hey, you've been through it. You're like me. I can too.
We've been working with both the community college system and the CSU system to develop this role.
It opens a door for opportunity, you know, for those individuals who have lived experience to start working in the field.
Becoming a wellness coach is a great way for us to give back to our communities, helping youth grow and be the best version of themselves.
I don't think that there is a maximum number of positive adults that we could have on a school campus supporting our kids and families.
It really is an upstream investment to change lives.
To change the narrative so that we're talking about wellness and not just about crisis, to help train a new workforce that can help provide support.
And I think bringing a wellness coach in it's an attempt. It's an effort to help make the world more human.
And that we really will have a more compassionate and empathetic society.
In my ideal world, what I would see is at least a couple on every school campus to complement the other staff that are already there.
This is a moment where we can make a change and where we have to make a change and where youth can help show us the way. And we think this coach role can help with that.
It's really important to have somebody just to be there, just to listen.
So a lot of really beautiful information, and that's on our website. Again, we'll provide that link to you, and that video is front and center. But just like to recap now, everything that you just heard, what is a wellness coach actually doing? And so here are their 6 core services that they offer in that primary prevention and early intervention space, which are wellness promotion and education, screening, care coordination extension, individual and group support, and then crisis referral. And also there's these core competencies that really are demonstrated areas of knowledge that are meant to be integrated into everything that they do. And as was discussed, that cultural responsiveness, that humility, the ability to mitigate implicit bias is such a key cornerstone of being able to adequately and appropriately connect with the child or youth and make sure that there's a safety associated with their personal experience. Professionalism, ethics, and legal mandates. So really ensuring that our coaches understand and that our employers adequately provide them any type of legal mandates that they're required to do by working in a particular setting. We have our own code of conduct and ethics that they must adhere to. So really making sure that these individuals are coming from a very professional standpoint. The ability to communicate, to do motivational interviewing, self-reflective practices, and really connect to each and every individual. And then also the ability to be adaptive so that they can operate within their role in different environments and really meet children and youth wherever they are. So I have one more short video from you, because now that we heard the overview, I'd really love for you to hear from an actual certified wellness coach.
I remember what it was like growing up in a chaotic household. I know exactly what the feelings felt like. I knew exactly as a young person how much trouble I had really navigating the dream world. People kept saying, well, go to college and be this and be that, when all I had around me was the complete opposite. It was not a lot of people going to college. It was not a lot of people graduating high school. In fact, it was more people smoking, drinking, cutting class. I realized that I was being met with the pressure of having to cope and really manage the situations I was going through without any coping skills. And so my experiences in Oakland have played a major role in who I am today, because I love my city, I love the people, and I want to encompass a world where we can have access to more mindfulness. I got involved in working at a juvenile hall where I was mentoring a bunch of juvenile youth, or just youth in general, who had such a passion for something bigger. But one thing that I started to realize was I seen the difference in people when I took time and space to provide a listening ear, to give them space to process the things that they have gone through that no one has asked them questions about. How are you dealing with this? How has this been heavy on your heart and soul? And based on these questions, it was a transformation, or more so what I call a narrative shift, of where they started to see themselves existing outside of their trauma. that comes with the ability of being able to also practice cultural humility, because through cultural humility, there are some things that are happening in households that we may not understand and that often could be met with judgment. I currently am a mentor at high school level, so I work with about 55 to 75 youth who I empower them to utilize mindfulness tools, ensuring to them that I am a safe place. I am somebody that you can come and talk to about life experiences, stress, struggles that you personally have. Our goal is just to empower them with healthy access to coping skills that they may have not seen in their family, they may not have seen in their community, and they need it as a part of their development and growth. And so when I came across the wellness coach opportunity, I hands down needed to jump on it. I feel like it is my, almost in a sense, my duty to really show up for my people in that way. I remember.
All right, so now that you understand the wellness coach profession, let's talk about how you actually get certified as a wellness coach. So in California, wellness coaches must be certified to be able to serve children and youth through age 25. This is a California-based profession, and because it's part of the Children and Youth Behavioral Health Initiative, they're specifically here to support our children and youth. So we require that candidates have specific competencies that demonstrate very small the ability to provide prevention and early intervention services to address social and emotional challenges. And they must have a specific degree and specific field experience hours in order to qualify. So there are two pathways to certification. One is our education pathway, and those are for recent graduates with little to no experience. And there's 3 degrees that qualify in this pathway: social work, human services, or addiction studies. We'll also talk about those degrees in more detail in the scholarship section. And this must be from a California college or university. They also must have at least 150 hours of field experience. And a lot of these degrees have field experience embedded as part of their degree program, so those hours do qualify, as well as any relevant experience volunteering or on the job. We also have a workforce pathway. Those are for professionals with experience in mental health, substance use or addiction services, social work, or child welfare. So these are our professionals who already have workforce experience. So we've expanded upon that degree list to also include psychology, sociology, and child development / early intervention, but they must have at least 150 hours of field experience. Again, these degrees are at the associate's level or bachelor's level, and should you want to learn any more about certification, please reach out to us and we can make sure to guide you through that process. So the path to becoming a certified wellness coach is you have to attend college. You need a degree first and foremost, and we'll talk about this, but if you have any barriers or if you've been interested in getting into school, or maybe are already in school and need some additional support, apply for a scholarship today. Our scholarship is open and we highly encourage you to explore and see if you are eligible to take advantage of this wonderful opportunity. Once you graduate and you've met those minimum hours, you can apply for certification. There's a hyperlink there. We also have it on our website. It's a very easy process. It's free. So it just requires you to put together your transcripts. You have to attest to your hours from your employer, and then you can apply to get certified. Certification does not guarantee employment, but what it does do is potentially open opportunities for you. So once you are certified, you can go look for employment. And HCI is in the process right now of launching a LinkedIn page that will be a great way for our employers and our certified wellness coaches to connect. Okay, so now that we've really grounded in what is a certified wellness coach and how do I get certified as a wellness coach, I'm going to kick it over to my colleague, Ann Powell, who's now going to take you through the specifics of the Wellness Coach Scholarship Program. Ann?
Thanks, Ben, and thanks for doing a great job of laying out a lot of complicated information, sort of summarizing 2.5 years of work. It's a lot to digest. So in addition to this recording, we will also share out this slide deck. And in the slide deck, you'll notice later on, there are web links to other resources for you. So In early July, July 8th, we opened a funding cycle to offer scholarships of up to $35,000 a year to students who want to become wellness coaches. This funding includes expenses for education and living, including dependent support costs. And in exchange for that scholarship, we require two things. One is to become a certified wellness coach, and then to work for 12 months as a certified wellness coach. And I'll talk about that more in a moment. Next slide. So the reason we are so excited to be here today is to reach out to you and your organizations to help us get the word out about this funding opportunity for college students at both the associate and bachelor level. Here's the beginning of providing some links that I mentioned a moment ago. So we really are particularly interested in attracting children and youth to become coaches in their career path who are coming from the communities where they have experience and can turn around and serve children and youth as a professional. But we need your help in building this new workforce. So what we would ask is that you get the word out. You'll notice that there, as I mentioned, there are links here. One in particular is an online flyer that you can also print out and share that has a QR code on it. And then we have a couple of email addresses for follow-up information. Next slide. So I saw in the chat there was a question about degrees and the education level. So I'll answer both questions here. So the eligible associate and bachelor degrees are addiction studies, human services, and social work. And different community colleges and universities, California universities, name those majors slightly different. But this, we believe, covers the full range of degrees. These scholarships are for associate and bachelor level only. We do hope at some point in the future that there will be master level scholarships, but we don't have that opportunity today. But we encourage you to sign up for our mailing list to learn when those opportunities do become available. Next slide. So as I mentioned, the maximum award is $35,000. It covers all of the costs of attendance up to that amount for 1 year. And as I mentioned, tuition fees, books, transportation, housing, food, loan fees, dependent care, whatever you can think of that's really important. And as you'll see on the next page, I'm going to walk you quickly through the cost of attendance form that we use in the application. Next slide. And so you can get a peek at this. I'm sorry if this is small, but basically it's asking what you estimate your annual cost for fees and tuition, books, and supplies, food allowance, housing, transportation, loan fees, and dependent care. We really urge applicants to not go by the amount that they might be told is allowable by the university or the school you're attending, because we have found that they tend to underestimate. Instead, base it on your actual experience. So if your rent's $1,500 a month times 12, that's $18,000 a year. And that's what we want to be able to support. There's a blue here up at the top, and that means you can get a link to the actual form itself. And we encourage people to do that, fill it out in advance, and then include it in the application online at the appropriate place. So you'll want to fill it out and then scan it or take a picture of it and submit that. Next slide. So as I mentioned earlier, there are 12 months service obligation associated with this grant opportunity. And for those that are working in the education setting, it actually works out to 10 months because a school setting 1 year is really 10 months of work. You can defer if you are an associate student and you plan to get a bachelor's degree in one of the 3 majors that I mentioned earlier. You can defer that service obligation for up to 30 months while you're getting that bachelor's degree so that you can become a certified wellness coach. Or you can start as a bachelor's student, even if you're a freshman, and seek funding. Next page. So this is key information for you. These are the dates. So as I mentioned, the cycle has been open now since July 8. It closes in about 2.5 weeks on August 16th at the end of the day. It says 3 p.m., but that's the time we encourage people to aim for. We expect to announce awards in October, and then the funding would begin. The funding would begin November 1. So the one thing I want to go back and remind you of that I didn't mention is or make note of is the academic year for which an applicant is eligible. You need to be in school next spring, but you may be in school already, but you also need to be continuing your education into the spring of 2025. Next slide. So these are those application resources that I noted earlier, the online flyer. There's also a link to our grant guide, a technical assistance guide to work through the application, the link to the application itself, and then the email address to the staff who work on the applications, and they can answer any and all questions that a student would have as they are filling out the application. Next slide. In addition, we wanted to share a couple of other resources. One is an employer resource guide. As an organization, you may be interested in considering hiring wellness coaches yourself or guiding your employees to become wellness coaches and get certified. This guide will give you some background on that. It's designed right now primarily for the education setting, but the process is the same. And there in particular are some job descriptions near the end of the guide that might be useful for you, both as a student trying to figure out what kinds of responsibilities and roles you would have, and as an employer knowing what you would use a wellness coach to do in your agency. And then lastly is our cawellnesscoach.org website that also has a link to the certification application on the very first page up in the right corner. Next slide. And with that, I'll ask Ben and Lindsay to come back on camera. And Jim, you can let us know about questions we can answer.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anne, and thank you, Ben. There have been a few questions in the chat. We will be sending out a link to this recorded webinar along with the slides to everyone who registered for the webinar following, in the next couple days. So you'll have this information to share with others as well as to review for yourself. So I'm just going to go through a couple questions that have popped up here. So one is from Regina Mason. Can you be a high school graduate entering community college and apply for the scholarship?
We would love you to start your community college education, and most definitely you would be qualified. So please apply. We would really support you doing that.
Can a communications major with a sociology minor apply for this scholarship?
I'm afraid not. You need to have as your major either social work, addiction studies, or human services.
Thank you. This is a question which I'm sure is in the back of the mind of many people watching in this webinar right now, which is there an estimate on what the pay rate might be for a certified wellness coach?
Ben, do you want to talk about that, or shall I?
I'm happy to. Essentially, HCI is not establishing pay rates because that's really up to organizations. That's not in our purview to be able to do so. However, as part of our grant application for employers, we did set it at around, I think it's 53,500 and 63,500, not including benefits. So it was that plus benefits as just a general range. And that was based off of a median of looking at other behavioral health professions throughout the state, looking at livable wages, and really just kind of seeing where some of these are based off of comparable education and experience, and then adding a little bit of an increase because we want to do what we can to encourage this to be desirable occupation in and of itself, knowing that it's still entry level. But we're unable to establish ranges, but we're kind of providing some general benchmarks that we've landed on based off of research to employers should they ask. So, and it changes from region to region too. If you're in the Central Valley versus San Francisco, of course, those ranges are going to be wildly different.
Hey, Ben, the dollar figures you mentioned, was that for someone with an AA becoming a wellness coach, or was that for someone with a BA?
The 53 range was the AA, the 63 range was the BA.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Thank you. All right. More questions coming here. Can a student graduating in the spring of 2025 qualify as an eligible recipient?
Yes, they are qualified. We're happy to say you need to be in school in the spring and graduate after April 1st, but you're qualified. Yes.
All right. Here's from Sienna. She's worked with a nonprofit for 8 years in mental health and is 4 classes away from an associate's in early childhood education. Do I qualify is the question.
So for a scholarship, you're too close to graduation to qualify. You have to take a minimum of 6 units of credit, either semester or quarter credits. And again, you have to be in school in the spring. It sounds like you're almost done and that wouldn't qualify. I'd also say that degree applies only to individuals who have experience. So you need to work a little bit before you have the requisite 1,000 hours to be qualified to enter following our workforce pathway.
And I think mentioned that there was many years of experience, but I'd recommend reach out to us at the I took down the slides, but there's wellnesscoach@hci.ca.gov. We'll put that in there. And then we can just make sure that we're giving you the appropriate information in terms of if you're talking about scholarship versus applying for certification.
Right. Yes, we recognized when we were looking at applications earlier this week that we have a lot of people returning to college with a lot of experience. So you may be a recent graduate, but have the experience. So definitely reach out.
Great. Can the scholarship funds also be used for other utilities such as a phone bill, electricity, internet?
Yes.
And what about electronic needs such as a laptop or other materials?
We trust that you would use the funds for things necessary to accomplish your education. So, yes, that would be allowed. We do not limit what it is used for. Our major takeaway message is that it's not just for tuition and books, it's for living expenses as well.
I think you've answered this, but I'll put it out there. Would a student majoring in psychology qualify as a field related to wellness coaching?
For the scholarship, no. It's just the fields of social work, human services, and addiction studies. But for the certification, yes, as part of the workforce pathway. But you would just need to meet that requisite hours of either 1,000 or 2,000 for your AA, BA, respectively. But again, if there's any questions or any lack of clarity on either process, just reach out to us and we'll make sure to address your questions. And we'll pop all that information in the chat, and then all of that contact info will be in the slide deck as well.
We had a couple questions on the difference between a certified peer support specialist and a certified wellness coach.
Yes. So there are two other professions somewhat related but different. One is peer support specialist and the other is a community health worker. And in both of those cases, they do not require college education. And that's the important distinction here, is that we're trying to create a profession that doesn't require a master's and license in order to help children and youth, that can work at that with an associate or bachelor degree, but that may at some point want to go on further. And so we view it as a pathway to their professional expansion and opportunities. A peer support specialist may want to become a wellness coach, and we would definitely support youth looking at that opportunity, because you have some insights already that would be invaluable as a wellness coach.
Great, thank you.
And to add on to that, I'd say, with the peer support specialist, it really is about lived experience. Whereas that's something that, of course, we welcome as the wellness coach, but that is not a requirement. And whereas the wellness coach really specializes in behavioral health for children and youth, which is not necessarily the specialty of a peer support specialist. So just in case you were wondering what the distinction was in some of those services too.
Good point.
Great. So we had a question early on in the chat about tribal colleges. It was a question from the California Tribal College over at Sac State. And or would students in those colleges be eligible to apply for the scholarship?
It really depends on the degree that's being issued, or the major that they are completing in college. I will admit I'm not familiar with the tribal college at Sac State, but what matters from our perspective is that they have the coursework to gain the competencies for becoming a wellness coach. And we've identified the social work, addiction studies, and human services degrees.
Yeah, that's one thing I'm seeing very clearly now, which wasn't as clear to me in the past, was that your field of study is super critical here, and you have certain very clear degree programs that someone has to be enrolled in and to access the scholarship. Yeah.
And to that point, Jim, Ben and Lindsay can say more about this, but we heard a lot in our stakeholder engagement process, the importance of people gaining internship opportunities as part of their educational process. And these are programs that have that opportunity in them. We'll look at others as time goes on and we find them, but these stood out because they have an internship opportunity.
Thank you. Yeah. So there was a question in the chat around how many scholarships will be awarded, and will you offer scholarships in the future?
So we can offer more than 1,000 scholarships. They're it's wide open. So don't let that be reason to hesitate. We're fortunate to have a good budget for that right now. In terms of future opportunities, we anticipate that in a brand new behavioral health initiative that's coming down the line that people above me are still developing, that opportunity will again be offered, and we may again offer it next year. We just don't know yet.
Here's a question from Alicia. I will be applying to Sac State come spring for a BA in sociology. Is this eligible for the scholarship, or do I need to wait until I'm actually enrolled?
It's two parts to the answer. One is the degree wouldn't qualify you for a scholarship. Enrolling in the spring is not an issue. All we care about is that you're enrolled or and graduating after spring, after that April 1 date. But unfortunately, sociology is not a qualifying degree.
Yeah, and just to reiterate one more time, because I think that there's maybe some confusion in the Q&A around degrees that qualify for scholarship versus degrees that actually qualify you for certification. And so we'll share these slides again, but really highly encourage everyone to review those one more time. The scholarship is only 3 degrees: social work, addiction studies, human services. We have some other titles that kind of fall under those broader categories, but anything outside of that does not qualify. That does not mean that if you have other degrees, you can't still apply for certification. We are opening those up to psychology, sociology, child development, early intervention. But that's on our workforce pathway. So that's for those that have some work experience, have already graduated with their degree. So those are 2 distinct categories. One is about actually applying for this opportunity right now versus being able to get certified down the road. So just hopefully that answers, because I'm seeing that kind of being a common theme. And I know I flew through the information, so I get why there was probably a little confusion in that.
I'm wondering, Ben, if you could flip back in the slide deck to that slide that showed the list of degree programs that you need to be in for the scholarship, and then the list of degree programs to enter the workforce. So that
Yes, you read my mind. I was wanting to see our faces, but sometimes I think it's good to get that visual one more time. So here's the eligible associate and bachelor's degrees for the scholarship only. So again, you can see our addiction studies, our human services, and social work. And then these under here are just various names that fall under those broader fields or under those departments, but are still technically that same type of degree. So this is the scholarship only. I think what some people are looking at or, was getting confused around, oops, sorry, I'm in the wrong section. And we have another visual that's helpful, but so those ones, when you're getting certified, those align with our education pathway. You can see those 3 right there. But what we also have is a workforce pathway. Now we're talking about getting certified through HCI as a wellness coach after you've gotten your degree and completed your hours. These are the 6 degrees that qualify. We have some other slides that we didn't include here that like really map it out more clearly and visually. So maybe we can embed those in here and send them, because I think sometimes the text doesn't land as thoroughly, but just wanted to clarify the distinction between scholarship and certification. You must have a degree before you can apply for certification as HCI. So
under the workforce pathway there, that's where you have the sociology and psych degrees, which, as you know, are very, very common for those of us who are in the youth worker space,
And to clarify a little bit about, why, I think Anne was mentioning this, the distinction is why those weren't included. When we did essentially building this model, we spent a lot of time with, children and youth, education stakeholders, a lot of people across industries to come up with specific courses, topics, and competencies that would specialize for this particular role. And when we did analysis of degree programs, the social work, addiction studies, and human services, they're ones that most closely aligned. And as Anne mentioned, they often have a field experience embedded in their program. Some of these other degrees we see are absolutely, very important, very essential, and have a lot of the foundation and basics, but there's such a wide variety of topics that may not always apply for children and youth behavioral health support. Like sociology sometimes can touch on that, but does not always have that. And there often isn't that social or across the board that field experience. So we just had to find a way that we could be encompassing. But, you know, we were limited in the types of degrees we could support. So that's kind of why there was that distinction. But we really want you to still apply for certification if you have those degrees and have that experience, because you're absolutely a value add to this workforce.
Totally.
There's a question here in the chat, which is a good one, about students who are returning to school and they're returning to a community college to pursue a degree. Is the scholarship for the community college student $35,000 as well as would be for the four-year student?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And just to say also, that is up to $35,000. It is not a guarantee of $35,000. It must be associated with tuition and associated expenses. So the tuition for the community college will be lower than the 4-year. But yeah, absolutely. Everybody still has that opportunity.
Yeah, they can still cover living expenses. And to admit that when as I was looking into this, the fact that you're supporting community college students, that really got my attention, because that really opens it up to a lot of young people who are launching a career or getting back on track, so that's super exciting. Yeah. So
and
here's
hopefully
a question
it'll introduce them to these helping professions, such as the wellness coach. Yes.
Yeah. If someone's a double major, so if they're like, here's a question from a nursing student, they're majoring in nursing and they were to be a double major in one of the qualified fields, would they be eligible for the scholarship?
They would.
Double majors are good. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we're getting some more questions about different types of degrees here. Yeah.
And I'm going to just leave up this slide just so everyone can see it as well. If you have more questions about the scholarships, please reach out to the BH programs. If you want to know more about certification, if that's still not fully clear, reach out to Wellness Coach, contact there. And then go to our website, that's cawellnesscoach.org. It'll talk more about how you can become a wellness coach. That's actually how you apply for certification. And if you want to learn about our scholarships, there's that final link as well. So we have lots of resources, but it's a lot to go through, and we get it. And it is not easy to wrap your head around all of this. We've been in it deeply and we still don't always get it. So please reach out to us. We are here to support you. Absolutely want to hear from you if anything that we say today isn't clear, if you need some more follow-up guidance.
So I have a couple more questions I want to hit, Ben, before we wrap up. One is, if you are already working in behavioral health, do you still need to complete hours after you graduate if you apply for the scholarship?
So the hours, they're really separate questions. One is the scholarship is about helping support your education, your time in education. The hours, you could be someone who has a lot of hours working, for example, as a child welfare worker, and go back to school and get an associate or bachelor in social work. Those hours will count when it comes to certification. That's different than what you need to do during your education. And does that help, Jim?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Do undocumented students qualify for scholarships?
Yes, they do.
And Jim, actually, I'm trying to answer some of the questions in the Q&A to help support you guys. And I just dropped an answer to that. But essentially, the additional response to that is, yes, they do qualify for the scholarship. But it's important to note that the scholarship includes a 1-year service obligation. And many of those employers that may fulfill the service obligation may require the student to be documented. And so it just depends on where you intend to serve your service obligation. If you know of an employer in which that's not a barrier, then, you know, we welcome you, of course, to proceed, but we just would not wish anyone not being able to fulfill the service obligation having to pay back the funds, which is, you know, the result of not fulfilling the service obligation. So
good clarification.
Thank you, Lindsay, for watching the Q&A. I've just been watching the chat, and there's so much going on in the chat that I can't pay attention to both. I did want to catch this question though. If you do not become a wellness coach after graduation, do you need to pay back the scholarship?
You do.
Yes. So that's, yeah, related to what I was just sharing as well.
Yes.
So kind of related to that question, is it fair to, I mean, this is not a question that you can answer, but just to put it out there. Let's say I'm enrolled, I get a scholarship, and then upon graduation, in kind of the general area where I live, there are not really certified wellness coach job opportunities. Is the expectation then that I may relocate to get such a job? Or, I mean, it's sort of this is kind of a tricky thing about, I need to work in order to, as the obligation for the scholarship, but what if there simply aren't jobs in my area or enough jobs or?
Well, we can tell you that a couple of things. One is we just awarded grants for schools and their partners to hire wellness coaches. And they estimate they'll employ more than 1,700. And right now, Lindsay, what's the current certification number? I think it's less than 300. So we have a lot of opportunity for hiring in wellness, in schools and their partner organizations. We are also educating non-school organizations that could use a wellness coach, like a community clinic, about the opportunity that a wellness coach could serve in their organization as part of that care team, just like Ben described earlier. So there's that. And then the last area that we've had some conversations with is the virtual opportunity with some of the online resources like Saluna. Am I saying it right? Did I never get it right? Bright Life and Saluna. That there may be an opportunity to become a wellness coach on those platforms, but just to let you see that it's very open. And we think there are going to be lots of opportunities. And lastly, the LinkedIn site that Ben mentioned will be a real asset to finding those jobs.
And also, and just to add on to that, the service obligation is that you get certified as a wellness coach and that you get employment where you function in the role of a wellness coach, but your employer or the, job that you apply for might call it something different. HCAS is not requiring that employers call this a wellness coach. So you might apply for a job that's called like family youth liaison, but the services that you offer align with the services of a wellness coach, and you are certified as a wellness coach using your certification in that work. Is that appropriately described, Anne? Yeah, so that might be a little bit encouraging to folks who are like, oh my gosh, I searched Indeed and there's like not a certified wellness coach job out there. That's not what the service obligation is about.
Oh, thank you, Lindsay, for helping us understand sort of the flexibility or the kind of broader way of thinking about it versus a very narrow way of thinking about it. That's been in the back of my mind as well, along with the salary question, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. I really appreciate Ben has just placed in the chat the link to the website. We will be following up and sending out information to everyone who registered, as well as those who were actually able to attend. And thank you again. I want to express my appreciation to the team from HCI for joining us and for all this amazing work they're doing. I think this is a super exciting opportunity for the youth development field. I've been in the youth development field for over 30 years in California, and this is by far the most exciting opportunity I've seen in terms of creating a sustainable funding source into building the field and building infrastructure long term. I think all of us out here in the nonprofit field have had the experience of trying to live grant to grant, the kind of coming and going of opportunities to build out our workforce, and then having to deal with changes that result in the workforce shrinking. But this is a super exciting opportunity, and we look forward to continuing to engage with you all in the community on this, as well as with HCI and the state. Okay. All right. Have a great rest of your day, everyone, and we'll be back in touch.
Thank you so much.
And thank you.